Okay, some further comments on developing the open book resource in learning materials. Oops. I've added a folder, open book resource, where we'll put various pieces of information. A couple of British standards there. We'll add some more, some information on texture analysis. But I've also done this document, OBR example shelf life. It's shelf life and also a little bit of a dip into the triangle test. How to develop the open book resource. So I do have this document which I will open here and we'll have a little wander through. I'll drag that over there. Beg your pardon, it's not the right one. That's the right one. Okay, let's make that a bit bigger. Right, okay, so this is it's 11-page document, but it's reasonably short. It's not a lot of content on how to develop the open book resource. Make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's happening. So first, a reminder of what we need to do. Section development in green, I need for the open book resource. Shelf life testing will be provided for you, as will all of the experimental methods. I'll put them into the open book resource. This document uses these formats for headings, and I'm inclined to say it might be a good idea to use this document as a template. So that's 18-point Arial for heading 1, 16 for heading 2, and 14 for heading 3 with different colours, with 11-point Arial for body text. So shelf life testing and triangle testing we'll have a look at. SLT is more complex, which is why it will be provided for you. Here's an overall plan which we might want to consider. For each section, reference the sources. Now this will normally be the British Standard or Brookfield technical documents for texture analysis. Mind map the topics with some numbers. Use the topics and numbers to label sections. Then populate the section with the relevant content, which is really just copying from the cited resources. Review it, maybe just some peer reviewing, and submit for compilation of the overall open book resource. Okay, so here's an example of shelf life testing. So reference sources, I have a couple here from the Food and Drink Federation's guidance on this, and an EU, a piece of EU regulation there, which is still relevant to the UK. This will obviously depend on what it is you're doing, but for the British standards it will just be the British standards. Now said, then mind map the topics. Now we'll have a look at using Xmind and copying information into documents after I've gone through this document itself. This is a top level mind map I've created here. Some topics have subheadings indicated by these numbers, which we'll have a look at in a second. You might want to include the full mind map, but depending on the complexity of it, you might just want to have this summary mind map at the start of a topic and then the more complex mind map in various different sections. Now notice you have numbers. Come to those numbers in a second. So here's an example of extended topics, so definitions for shelf life. There's quite a lot of them, which is why I wanted to provide this for you rather than have you do this. So maybe use, if it's an extensive sub-mind map or a mind map that has a lot of sort of branches off it, maybe use separate sections for each subsection. Okay, so use topics and number sections. So here's just another thing I've thrown in for shelf life testing, which doesn't have any numbers. That's just taken the shelf life lectures. In this case, we've got level 4 factors affecting shelf life, then 4.1 intrinsic and extrinsic sections. So just one major heading here and one subheading. Now in this case, in the subheading, when I populate a section with relevant content, again this is just taken from the lecture notes. I've talked about intrinsic and extrinsic factors. I've done a little introduction to that, and I've included the mind map, which is the sort of summary information again from the presentation. Then some comments about the factors below the line being more important for a discussion about shelf life. Now this is a sort of thing that you could extend in your discussion if you're answering a question about shelf life to talk about the particular product which you're looking at. More on that later. Okay, so here's an example of more something which you'll be doing. So a triangle test. Reference sources is a British standard. So it's a British standard, we've got the name of the standard and we've got the number of the standard. Now the mind map topics are developed from British standard content structure, but you don't include this because we don't want to include all of this. For example, if you look at the information for the scope and the normative references, they're pretty much the same in all of British standards, and it's not really what we need here. What we're trying to do here is distill down this information into a professional resource which we can use fairly quickly in the 48 hours we have to answer the exam questions. It will take quite a lot of that time. You won't be awake for 48 hours, obviously. So we don't need to include sections 1 and 2, and sections 8, 9 and 10 are included in the methods, which will be added to the OBR by staff, that is to say me. Now, excluding these sections will mean the OBR is numbered differently to the above table. This doesn't matter as long as you are consistent in your approach. So, top level mind map. So we've got 1, in this case, terms and definitions, where terms and definitions was number 3 in the British Standard. Principle, general test conditions and requirements, assessors and procedure. So that's a top level mind map. Then we again do the factors. So I've looked at section 4 here, factors affecting shelf life. Thinking mostly about assessors. Yeah, that should be just assessors there actually. So it's easy to misnumber things, so be careful, which is why you need something to check at the end. So that's broken down into 2 sections, qualifications and numbers of assessors. Some text here, which we won't have a look at in particular, because I'll show you where it's going to come from in a second. Then down here we have number of assessors, and we note the bit I've highlighted in red there, see the instruction in A3. Now where did this come from? It came straight from the British Standard. So this is essentially just copied from section 6. Just copied over, pasted across, and that's all you need to do. We are summarising here. Now in section comments it refers to A3, which is Appendix 3. Now I've reviewed that in the lectures, and it will be in the provided experimental method. So I refer to this as below. Choose a number of assessors so as to obtain the sensitivity required for the test. See method section. If you remember, we had a little spreadsheet which you read across and down to see how many assessors you need to get a particular sensitivity. Just some comments on engagement and marks. These are the overall marks from last time the module was run. The average mark was 71%, as I think I mentioned. 21 out of 25 students from the 2-1 or first category. And there's a good spread of marks, clearly demonstrating that individual strengths are being effectively assessed. Those that weren't in the top categories were students who were less well engaged with all aspects of the modules. So hopefully a good lesson there. If you're engaged, you will be successful. Right, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Mindmap. The Mindmap. Okay, so here's the Mindmap I did for shelf life testing. It's using XMind, which I'll put a link to in the Blackboard module. Probably best to search from that link rather than trying to search for yourself. Sometimes you can get sort of dodgy links, as I'm sure you know. So how do we get this across? Now, this is the free version, and I'm 221 days into my evaluation. It's good. I don't think it's good enough to be worth paying for, to be honest. So what we need to do is copy this as an image. Now, the problem is if you got a file somewhere over here in export as various things, it puts a watermark on the image, and we don't want that. So what I simply do is just make it reasonably big. So I want that little bit there, and then I just press print screen. I'm just gonna have to get my keyboard back. Okay, I'll press print screen. Then it's going to an image editing program. So in this case, I'm using a version of PaintShop Pro so old I don't even need to install it. Control V to paste it in. Right, make that a little bit bigger. Obviously you can use Paint or whatever it is you use. Zoom that in. Scooming in, moving about a little bit. And then all I need to do is, I'll probably just crop it down in this case. Let me just crop down. And then I'll just copy that and paste that into the document. So it's as straightforward as that. Right, I think that covers everything. Hope that was helpful. So this is something we'll do step by step. It shouldn't take each student really more than an hour of real effort, maybe 2 across the course of the next few weeks, working in groups. Obviously each group will be doing more than that. To produce a good resource which will help you in the exam. Okay, right, I'll do for now.